Camera speeds.
Speeding.
Second sticks.
Great.
I'm originally from Hewlett, New York. Right now I live in Brooklyn. My career is pretty New York-centric. Something that I love about it, especially being in the nonprofit world, it's really nice to have a job where I feel like I'm giving back in some kind of way. In my spare time, I mean, especially in New York, there's such great access to Broadway shows, theater, spending time with friends, trying new restaurants. I think that's one of my favorite parts about New York is there's never a shortage of things to do. Leading up to my diagnosis, I started having symptoms that I didn't even know were symptoms. I was bruising a lot, I'd be flossing my teeth and my gums would still be bleeding the next day, my period would be very heavy, but they were all these random things that I didn't think anything of. I was able to kind of shrug it off. Until the day that I woke up where I had little red spots everywhere. That was a pretty big red flag. So I did a telehealth call to a doctor, and the doctor did not seem fazed by it whatsoever. My fiance said, no, we need to go to urgent care, like you need to be seen by a doctor in person. When I got to urgent care, the doctor knew right away it was petechiae, because when you touched it, it didn't slightly go away, it didn't turn white, like oftentimes like a different type of red mark might do that. It stayed there no matter how hard you pressed on it. And I remember him saying to me, he said, you need to go to the ER right away. When I got to the emergency room, they did lots of blood work, and the first thing that they found was that my platelets were really low. I really had very little idea of what that actually meant. I knew platelets were involved in clotting blood, but even when they told me my platelets were at 2,000, I had no concept of what that really meant. I could tell that the doctors were really worried, the nurses were really concerned, but I felt fine, so it was hard for me to really wrap my head around it. They suspected right away it was likely immune thrombocytopenia, also known as ITP. I remember the head of the ER came to me later that night and he said, I don't want you to worry. We all know what's happening. We all have an eye on you. And I remember thinking, I wasn't worried until you said that because now I am. I think there was this big fear as to what does that mean? What does that mean for the long term? Am I going to be healthy? Am I going to be okay? Are other things going to happen? It was very overwhelming. It was exhausting from a physical, a mental, emotional state. It was pretty tough. My ITP diagnosis definitely changed my life. I think in the very beginning, there was like the immediate, okay, I have to be careful, especially when my platelets are low. I was having lab work done every single week to monitor my platelets, and it was, a huge roller coaster. I mean, they would dip down, they'd get a little higher, they'd go back down. And sometimes when it feels like a roller coaster of your platelets and things seem to be on the upswing and okay, I think this is it, I think we're in a good place, is often sometimes not where it's gonna end. Sometimes platelets crash, sometimes, you feel really tired and achy and it feels just so hard to get through it. I really started searching online for support groups and things like that, and I found people locally who also could answer questions like, what does it mean to go on the subway? New York can be a really tough place to navigate. How do you do that with low platelets? Some of us have become really close. It's really nice when I get really great lab work back to have somebody to share it with. My fiance has been great since my diagnosis. I feel very fortunate. He's been there, whether it's just to make silly memes to cheer me up. Thankfully, he pushed me to get medical care because it would not have been a good thing if I'd waited the next day. If I met someone who was just diagnosed with ITP, I would tell them, first of all, I totally know how you feel. It can be really scary, it can feel really big, and it is not always an easy fix, and it can take a long time. It is certainly a journey, and it is certainly a roller coaster. But there's so many people out there who are also going through this. My big hope is that I can live my life as normally as possible as I would have had I never been diagnosed. And it becomes something I maintain, that it's something that just becomes a normal part of my life, and that's just I continue moving forward like I would have had I not been diagnosed.